Hi everyone, welcome to Coffee Talk. I'm Jill Bandemer.
And I'm Nellie Sciutto, and we are talking about how in this quarantine around the world, you know what's really fun? It's still fun to gossip, and it's fun to talk about people who are still arguing and feuding during these times, right, Jill?
It still is. I have to say, I used to dislike it before all this happened. 2 months ago, I'd have been like, I can't stand hearing that news. And now it's kind of like, it just is like an escape. And it's kind of like, it just takes your mind off of everything else where you're like, really? So-and-so is fighting or so-and-so is suing somebody. It's like, whoever thought, I'm not happy about that. But at the same time, I'm like, it takes my mind off for a second of all just the stuff that's going on right now.
Me too. It's like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, one of the big feuds is Snoop Dogg and Izzy Azalea. And I kind of love that one because they've had this feud going on, and the reason they started the feud was because he called her ugly.
Right.
Which is just so awful, but kind of funny at the same time because Snoop Dogg just says whatever he wants to say, and she's obviously not ugly, so it's okay. You know what I'm saying? She's obviously a very beautiful woman, so just because Snoop Dogg says she's not cute, nobody really cares, right?
And I'm going to say this. I'm going to preface this because I've had Snoop Dogg on a show I booked years ago called The Other Half, and he really is amazing and really lovely. I think he's a lovely person. He was a great co-host back then. I'm not surprised because he ended up co-hosting with all the guys back then. But he also he does love his weed or pot, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
My girlfriend the other day called it grass. I was like, wow, I haven't heard that in a long time. So who knows when exactly he was saying that and under what condition he was saying that. But I guess, like he just speaks his mind,
Yeah.
whatever is on his mind and whatever is controlling his mind.
It's just not cool. Even though he's so cool. And then another one, of course, is Katy Perry and Taylor Swift. Those two are always arguing. And I guess it's because they're both arguing for the title, like the heavyweight champion of Queen of Pop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I don't know, like Katy Perry is pregnant right now. Congratulations, Katy. But hopefully they're kind of calling it a truce. When they did that one video where I think she ends up coming out and like they're dressed in like a shake or a burger. Like I think Katy Perry was dressed as a burger or something. And that was kind of great. Like in Taylor Swift's, I think it was Taylor Swift's video. But
Yeah.
they're so quirky and stuff. And I think hopefully with those two, they've kind of solved their differences, but I don't know,
What's fun about them is, Taylor Swift presents this image of I'm such a good girl and I'm so perfect.
Yeah.
Katy Perry presents this image of I'm such a bad girl. Look at me.
Yeah.
So, they're actually not that far apart, but those are the images that they're presenting. To be honest, I don't really think either one of them is actually true. I don't think Taylor Swift is, I'm going to be honest. Remember when she was dating the Kennedy kid and she like bought the house across the street and moved in?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? She bought the house across from not Chappaquiddick, sorry. The family home on the Cape.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a little weird. That's not something that like a totally together girl does, is buy the house down the street after dating for 2 weeks. That's not normal.
Yeah.
And Katy Perry, on the other hand, is the daughter of a preacher and always seems a little rebellious, but not really. She's also a good egg, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And Nellie, speaking of which, though, you had just told me this before we got on, Meghan Markle. There's always something with Meghan and Harry. There's always something going on. What's happening with Meghan and Harry?
Well, I just heard today that she's suing the Daily Mail in England for putting out a letter that she wrote to her father before the wedding. And I'm just going to be honest. That whole thing, the whole thing is weird to me. It's very bizarre to me that they decided to leave the royal family after having a big royal wedding and everything else and, loving all of it. And I also think it's weird that she excluded her dad because I don't know what it is. To me, at the end of the day, if you're not in touch with your father, just have him stand in the crowd. Just do, throw him a bone. It just seems like you don't have to make such a big deal out of it. I find that a little strange, but I will say this. I don't know how well this is going over right now. I don't think people really love the two of them anymore because they were sort of different, and now they're just a little too rebellious. And also they complain a lot, and I don't think people are loving them. That's the kind of thing I'm reading in the news is people aren't loving the way they handled it.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand them wanting to be able to pursue their, their career aspirations and be able to have their own say. They're very philanthropic as well. I completely understand that because I think when you're in the royal family, it probably seems like a big corporation where it's like, don't do that. No, 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 you can't do this. You can't do
Right.
that.
Then don't marry into it. Why did they have that big wedding that probably cost, $20 million? Why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? If you're really a person who's against that kind of display,
Yeah.
then don't do it and then reject it. I think that's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Megan. That's ridiculous to go on and be a princess for a week and then say, I don't like this. I'm better than that. Come on. Then just don't do it.
Yeah, yeah, it's I can see both sides. I have to say because I loved his mother, and I know he lost his mother, and we still think it's the paparazzi was chasing them, so to try to have your privacy. So I can understand that side of it, and I mean they are living here in Los Angeles because she grew up here, so I can understand that too. But it is kind of like you're exactly right. There's certain things that you were born into, and he was blessed. He was born into this wonderful royal family. So it's just kind of like that's just what you do. And frankly, it's not like was Harry who's going to be king. Like, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's not like he was William who's going to be king. Like Harry is very far down the down that path, I guess. But still, it's just, I don't know. I agree with you. Like, you kind of, she knew what she was signing up for. So, and with him too, who would have ever thought? Because it went from being this wonderful, like, oh my gosh, she's, multiracial, she's biracial, and how amazing this is.
Princess, how wonderful is that?
Yeah, and all the wonderful things she could have done in England. So I do wonder what the English people are thinking because I probably sound like my parents as I say this, but where is all that money coming from? Where did it go? That you're right, that the people paid for the wedding or the bodyguards, and now, it's just if they're on their own, that's fantastic that they're on their own. But I down the road, I just wonder if they'll go back to London. They'll go back and
no. I heard they're going to start a production company. So who knows what they're going to do. So moving on to feuds. Martha Stewart and Gwyneth Paltrow. That's another one of my favorites.
No, okay, you have to fill me in on this one because I did not. I mean, let me tell you, Gwyneth Paltrow with her group. It's group.
Yeah.
It's Goop. The whole Goop, enterprise that she has going seems huge, but boy, there's some weird things that come out of Goop. Every time, in the past I've watched talk shows and she has some very weird whack candles that smell like certain body parts and.
I didn't actually know that, but I thought it was funny because Martha Stewart made a comment. This is how their feud started. She said, if she were confident in her acting, she wouldn't have to try to be Martha Stewart.
Oh, Martha! Whoa!
Basically, that's what she was saying is don't try to be me because it's just because you can't act. So clearly that, started a row.
Oh my gosh, you can't handle it, Gwyneth. You just can't handle it. Wow.
Well,
that was it.
Some are hilarious. I mean, if you think about Martha Stewart, they seem to each have their own well-sized ego and they're just fine with who they are.
Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. Martha seems to really, really like her having things a certain way, for sure. I like Gwyneth in the sense that, like, she's still kind of goofy and silly. Like, honestly, I've watched so many talk shows when they could have guests on that she was on with, like, and she has a lot of sexual type things. And I mean, she's really talking about that stuff. And, of course, if it's Jimmy Kimmel or even Ellen or whomever, Stephen Colbert, they're kind of more embarrassed. And here's Gwyneth just talking away, and it's just like, maybe she's more of like the Martha Stewart of sexual products. I don't know.
I think she's the Martha Stewart of really, really expensive products.
That's the other thing. She even had like wellness vitamins that I was like, oh, that sounds great. All the vitamins, you just take one of these vitamins and you're good. But it was super expensive. Like, I think it was hundreds of dollars when I looked it up and I was like, no, that's rich. That's really like the Richie Rich, products.
Well, I have another one that I think is coming, like a feud that I think is coming. Chris Cuomo, who we know his wife contracted coronavirus too. She just put out a thing today saying that she's healing herself with lots of very expensive vitamin drips where she has somebody come in a hazmat suit to give them to her, and by bathing in a half a cup of Clorox in her bathtub. And I thought, all I
What?
did was, I'm not saying anything. I'm not even going to say anything. All I did was think, here comes a feud. Like, here comes, somebody's going to say, that's just not right. It's not me. I'm just saying somebody's not going to like it.
Wow. She bathes in Clorox bleach?
Right now, because of having coronavirus. So, we're seeing this misinformation on the news about how not to handle this if you have it, or if you're worried about getting it. And it is interesting that that was her suggestion. So I'm just saying, I feel a feud brewing. Somebody's going to step out and be like, "That's ridiculous." So it wasn't me. I'm just saying, I feel it in the air.
I want to say that sounds ridiculous too. I didn't even know. I wouldn't, honestly, I would not put Clorox bleach near my body. I mean, even if it's a little bit, like if I spill it on my clothing, even, I'm just like, oh my gosh, right away. Of course, I've got the bleach stain or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Oh my gosh, I'm pasty enough the way it is. I don't need to bathe in Clorox bleach.
Keep your ears peeled for this one, because I feel like it's going to cause a stir.
Wow.
All right. So that's been our episode. It's just always fun to talk about nonsense when we're stuck in our homes, right, Jill?
Yes, it is. Oh, yes, absolutely.
So that's been another episode of Coffee Talk. I'm Nellie Sciutto.
And I'm Jill Bandemer.
And we'll catch you next time.